Welcome back to another explainer. Today, we are diving into an absolutely fascinating, literal trillion-dollar divergence in tech history. We're going to unpack the story of two internet pioneers. On one side, you have the undisputed heavyweight champion of the early web, and on the other, a scrappy little research project that fundamentally changed how we find information. We're breaking down exactly why Yahoo failed while Google won.
And I want to start right out of the gate with a number that is gonna, well, probably make your jaw drop. $1 million. What if I told you that Yahoo, right at the absolute peak of its early power, actually had the opportunity to buy a young, unproven Google for just around $1 million? Seriously, it's true. Back in the late 1990s, the creators of Google were actually willing to part with their search engine algorithm for what is basically pocket change in today's tech landscape. But Yahoo passed. They just didn't see the long-term value.
But you know, the story gets even more incredible. Let's fast forward just a few years. Yahoo reportedly gets a second chance. Only this time, the price tag has jumped to about $5 billion. Now, that is still a massive sum of money, for sure, but Yahoo reportedly balked at the price and declined the acquisition once again. It's just a mind-boggling choice when you sit back and think about the reality of today, right? Because Google is now a global juggernaut worth literally trillions of dollars. Yahoo had two chances to own the future, and they walked away both times.
Which brings us to the core mystery of our explainer today. How on earth did Yahoo lose the internet? Because if you weren't online in the late 90s, you really have to understand, Yahoo wasn't just a website, it was the internet. It was the undisputed front page of the web. When you bought a computer and dialed up your modem, Yahoo was the front door to your entire digital life. So losing a monopoly like that requires a very specific sequence of events and some massive miscalculations.
Conversely, we have to ask the flip side. Why did Google win? I mean, it wasn't just blind luck, and it wasn't just that Yahoo stumbled. No, Google executed an absolute masterclass in product focus and technological superiority. So in this explainer, we're going to uncover the real reasons, the precise business mistakes that shifted this balance of power and, frankly, changed technology forever.
All right, Section 1, Birth of the Giants.
To really understand this rivalry, we've got to go back to the 1990s, right back to the dorm rooms of Stanford University, where both of these companies were born. Now, there was a really stark contrast in how these founders viewed the internet. Jerry Yang and David Filo created the Yahoo directory. Back then, the internet was, well, it was completely chaotic, so they manually categorized websites into a neat, hierarchical directory. It was essentially a human-curated yellow pages of the web. On the other side, you had Larry Page and Sergey Brin approaching the exact same problem completely differently. They created a highly technical research project called the PageRank algorithm. So instead of humans categorizing links, they built math and code to automatically rank websites based on their importance, looking at the number of other sites linking to them. So you have manual curation on one hand versus automated, scalable technology on the other.
And this perfectly illustrates what would eventually become Google's defining mission statement: organize the world's information. Because of their algorithm, Google's search results just immediately stood out from the pack. While Yahoo required this massive team of editors to manually keep up with the exploding number of websites, Google's math just got smarter and more efficient the larger the internet grew. They're practically tailor-made for exponential growth.
Moving on to Section 2, Yahoo's web domination. Now, before search became the main event, the internet was all about portals, and this ecosystem is exactly why Yahoo became such a giant. They had this everything-to-everyone strategy. You didn't just go to Yahoo to search for things, you went there to literally live your digital life. You checked your Yahoo email, you read Yahoo News, tracked your stocks on Yahoo Finance, checked scores on Yahoo Sports, and chatted with your friends on Yahoo Messenger. This massive, sticky traffic allowed them to build a colossal advertising business, because the whole goal was to keep you on their site for as long as humanly possible.
Which brings us to Section 3, Google's search revolution.
While Yahoo was busy building, a sprawling digital shopping mall to keep you trapped inside, Google was building a high-speed transit system to get you directly to your destination. Yahoo's homepage was visually super loud, packed with hundreds of links, banners, news tickers, the whole shebang. Google, on the other hand, offered a stark visual rebellion. Just a logo, a search box, and a whole lot of white space. They genuinely didn't want you to stay on their homepage. They wanted you to find exactly what you were looking for and leave immediately.
So the absolutely crucial point here is how this translated into a winning user experience. It follows a really clear step-by-step logic. Step 1, minimal design. This meant the page loaded incredibly fast, which was a huge deal on the slow dial-up modems of the era.
Step 2. Fast, highly relevant results meant users actually found what they were looking for right away, without having to click through endless directory categories. And Step 3. Continuous improvement. Because Google only focused on search, their algorithm just kept getting better and better. And eventually, users overwhelmingly preferred this stripped-down, highly relevant approach over Yahoo's incredibly heavy, media-dense ecosystem.
All right, Section 4, the ultimate turning point.
Now, while the granular day-to-day details of those billion-dollar acquisition discussions are sometimes disputed, the broader strategic split that happened next is just an undeniable matter of historical record. Yahoo looked at its business and made a definitive choice. They focused on becoming a media company. They prioritized content, user engagement within their portal, and display advertising. To them, search was really just one of many features on their site. Google, on the other hand, doubled down strictly on search and technology. They viewed search not as a neat little feature, but as the foundational infrastructure of the entire internet. And it's this single strategic divergence that fundamentally dictated their scalability and ultimately crowned the winner. But listen, this story is far from over. What we've covered today just sets the stage. In part 2 of this explainer, we are going to get into the granular, behind-the-scenes drama. We're going to explore the specific, catastrophic mistakes that Yahoo's leadership made in the years that followed. We'll break down the genius advertising breakthrough that literally turned Google into a money-printing machine. We'll analyze the massive differences in their leadership styles, and perhaps most importantly, we're going to look at how this exact history might be repeating itself right now with AI and the future of search. So I want to leave you with this question to chew on. What are the key business lessons every entrepreneur must learn from this trillion-dollar divergence? Is it better to do 100 things decently or one thing perfectly? Think about your own projects, your own businesses, or even just how you organize your own work. The massive gap between Yahoo and Google proves that absolute focus and strong technological foundations can literally rewrite history. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. Keep this question in mind, and I will see you in part 2, where we uncover the rest of these incredible secrets.
Hey everyone, and welcome to this explainer. Today, we're diving into a full-blown, cinematic deconstruction of what is arguably the most famous and consequential rivalry in the history of the internet. We're talking about two absolute heavyweights of the early web, two massive companies that literally stood at the exact same starting line, armed with seemingly endless resources and the eyes of the entire world on them. But, as we'll see, their strategic choices sent them down two completely different paths. We're going to break down the brilliant strategies, the devastating missteps, and the ultimate lessons we can all take away from this historic clash.
Okay, let's jump right into this, because the stakes here are just fascinating. I mean, picture this. You are on top of the world. You are the undisputed go-to gateway to the internet for millions and millions of people. Your logo is everywhere. That was the reality for Yahoo. Yet, just down the road in Silicon Valley, another, much smaller startup was completely ignoring all the flashy trends. Instead, they were quietly building a singular, powerful engine that would eventually redefine how humanity accesses knowledge and basically reshape the entire digital economy. It's kind of a classic reminder, right? Starting on top definitely does not guarantee you're going to stay there.
All right, let's kick things off with part 1, the divergent tech paths. So, on one side of the ring, we have Yahoo. They became the immediate frontrunner by leaning into what's known as a portal strategy. Basically, they wanted to be everything to everyone: news, email, weather, finance, chat rooms, the whole shebang. They essentially built a giant digital shopping mall designed to keep you trapped inside their ecosystem for as long as possible. But on the flip side, we have Google. Instead of building a mall, Google was quietly obsessing over perfecting just one single thing: a profoundly superior search engine. They didn't want to trap you on their site at all. Their whole goal was to get you to your actual destination as incredibly fast as possible.
Which brings us to part 2, Yahoo's most costly missteps.
Now, you've got to wonder, where exactly did the undisputed king of the internet go so wrong? How in the world does a company with that much market share, mountains of cash, and total cultural dominance just lose its crown? Well, it wasn't an overnight crash. It was a slow, steady erosion caused by a series of really critical choices in a landscape that was just shifting incredibly fast. So the crucial point here is that Yahoo suffered from a profound lack of focus. Because they were trying to be the everything store, they ended up with a massive pile of disjointed products. This intense product bloat was paired with a revolving door of leadership, meaning the company's vision was constantly whiplashing back and forth. And while they were distracted trying to manage all this internal chaos, they totally failed to innovate quickly. The result? They missed out on some monumental acquisition opportunities that literally could have saved the company. This quote right here really hits the nail on the head regarding the massive opportunity cost of complacency. In the tech world, hesitation is just incredibly expensive. While Yahoo was sitting around trying to figure out if it was a media company or a technology company, the entire landscape was changing around them. And there's a really powerful business lesson here. When your identity is fractured, your ability to actually execute on the future is completely paralyzed. Okay, let's flip the script. Part 3, Google's winning strategy ecosystem. Literally everything Google built rests on this one rock-solid foundation, their search-first philosophy. This was their absolute bedrock. It was an uncompromising commitment to prioritizing the core search experience above everything else. They figured out pretty quickly that solving real user problems was way more valuable in the long run than distracting people with flashy banner ads for stuff they didn't even want. Their big bet was that if they just provided the absolute best utility out there, the business model would naturally follow.
And this timeline is just a brilliant illustration of how perfectly that philosophy played out over the years. This search-first mentality naturally sequenced their growth. They started with the core search engine back in 1998. Once that was totally dialed in, they successfully monetized it with Google Ads in 2000. Then the ecosystem just exploded. You've got the massive YouTube acquisition in 2006, launching Android and Chrome in 2008 so they could literally control the platforms we used to search, all the way up to present-day cloud computing and artificial intelligence. It's like a giant puzzle where every single move naturally strengthened their continuous innovation loop.
But what fueled that timeline wasn't just good luck. It was a deeply ingrained internal culture. Google empowered an immensely strong engineering culture that was relentlessly focused on data-driven decisions. Instead of relying on gut feelings or executive egos, they trusted the math. They looked at the data. And this created a continuous innovation cycle that allowed them to successfully and super confidently scale up into these massive new arenas. So let's put them head to head. Part 4, the ultimate model showdown. Now, what's really fascinating here is the stark contrast in how these two companies actually approached making money through advertising. Yahoo relied on an advertising portal model. Think of it kind of like a giant digital billboard. They wanted huge traffic so they could sell flashy display ads based on broad demographics. But Google, they built a search advertising model. This was entirely intent-based. Google wasn't guessing what you wanted. You were literally typing your exact specific desires right into their search bar. This allowed them to serve highly relevant, targeted ads exactly at the moment you were looking for them. It was a total game changer. Let's break this down to see exactly why Google's model was just vastly superior across the board. First up, scalability. Yahoo needed this massive, huge sales force to manually sell banner ads, while Google built a self-serve ad platform that scaled infinitely with software. Then, user experience. Yahoo's portal became super cluttered and noisy, whereas Google kept things clean and lightning fast. For innovation, Yahoo got bogged down trying to maintain all their old legacy systems, while Google was aggressively funding future tech. And all of this inevitably leads to that final row, revenue generation. Google's highly targeted, incredibly scalable model simply generated far more sustainable and explosive revenue. No contest. Moving on to part 5, the future of search. Because look, the landscape is fundamentally evolving all over again. The integration of artificial intelligence and generative AI capabilities are totally changing how we retrieve information. Add in the rise of voice search, and people aren't just typing keywords anymore. They're having full-on conversational queries with their devices. This constant search evolution is creating fierce, massive new competition in the tech space. We're not here to make any wild speculative predictions, but the data is pretty clear. The rules of the game are shifting rapidly, and even today's undisputed giants have to adapt or face some very real challengers. Which leads us perfectly into part 6, lessons for every entrepreneur. So let's distill this history down into a concrete blueprint that we can actually use. Step 1, stay hyper-focused on your core. Don't try to be everything to everyone like Yahoo did. Steps 2 and 3, keep innovating relentlessly and fiercely protect your competitive advantage. You gotta hire talented people and actually empower them to build the future. Step 4, listen closely to your customers by making truly data-driven decisions. And finally, step 5, adapt before your competitors force you to. In this industry, complacency is the ultimate enemy of longevity. It's really important to remember that history is rarely just black and white. Yahoo didn't fail because of one bad decision made on a random Tuesday. Its decline was this deeply complex combination of strategic missteps, drastically shifting technology trends, massively increasing competition, and just systemic execution challenges. It was really the compounding slow motion effect of a company losing its true north. On the flip side, Google's rise was just as systemic, but they pointed their compass in the right direction. Their relentless focus on actually solving users' problems, rather than just obsessing over their own short-term revenue goals, is what helped them become one of the most influential technology companies in human history. It's a really inspiring reminder that true, lasting business success comes from prioritizing innovation, staying adaptable, and fully committing to a long-term vision. Which brings us to a final thought I want to leave you with today. As you navigate your own projects, your own businesses, or even just your own career in a world of constant technological shifts, ask yourself this. Are you building a cluttered portal, desperately trying to capture every single passing trend? Or are you building a highly focused, perfectly tuned engine? Thank you so much for hanging out with me for this explainer. Keep learning, keep innovating, and I will see you next time.